Is Squid Game based on real events? A question many have asked since the show dropped, and the truth might be even more disturbing than you think. The show's creator denies it, but here's the twist. Squid Game could very well be based on one of the darkest chapters in history. A chapter that's barely talked about, but deeply horrifying. Hey everyone, what's up? I know you've seen the memes and those viral posts claiming that Squid Game was based on true events. I mean, come on, there are photos floating around that make it look like the very place where the events in Squid Game actually happened. But let's break it down. First, let's do a quick rundown of what Squid Game is. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you doing? It's Netflix's biggest hit. 456 contestants, all struggling financially, are invited to compete for a massive cash prize, $4.56 million. The catch? It's a deadly game where losing means you die. But let's pause. Could something like this happen in real life? Now, I know some of you might have seen those photos of the Squid Game location that look so real they could almost be the set. At first I thought, this can't be a coincidence. It just makes sense that something like this could happen, right? But then I discovered something strange. The photos weren't real, they were AI generated. A viral artist with a twisted portfolio created them. But here's where it gets interesting. One of those photos, the one that was most widely shared, that one was real. And that's when I went down a rabbit hole. I dug deep, spent hours watching Korean documentaries, reading reports, and what I uncovered is chilling. There is a real-life inspiration for the show, rooted in a place so disturbing that it's rarely talked about. And in the end, I'll try to show you that the creator of Squid Game might have drawn inspiration from one of the most horrific events in recent history. Let me take you to a place known as Korea's Auschwitz. And this is no metaphor, this is real. In 1982, in South Korea, a place called Busan, a 12-year-old boy named Jong is taking care of his sick mom. He's a straight-A student, a model kid. But one day, after going out to the city with a neighbor, Jong finds himself being led away by a police officer. The officer says he'll take him home, and then Jong disappears. This wasn't the first, and it wouldn't be the last time kids went missing. Thousands of them vanished in 1982, and it gets worse. Another story, this one from 1983, involves a 14-year-old boy named Choi. He was walking home from school when a police officer stopped him and accused him of stealing bread. Choi denied it, but the officer was relentless, using violence to force a confession. Eventually, the boy was taken to the police station. There's more. An 8-year-old girl named Park Sun-ae, a 15-year-old boy named Young Sing-gu, and so many others, all taken by the police. Why? Where were they being taken? These children, these families were vanished without a trace. And once they were taken, they were loaded onto buses, guarded by armed men, and transported to a remote location hidden in the forest behind a 7-meter-high concrete wall. The moment they arrived, they were stripped of their identities. Their heads shaved, their clothes torn off, and their names replaced with numbers. This place, which no one could find, was a kind of prison, a place so isolated and so dark that it might as well have been out of a nightmare. If you think the van ride in Squid Game was eerie, just wait until you hear about what happened next. They arrived at a massive facility where they were forced into dorms with 80 to 100 people per room. And guess what? Everyone was wearing blue striped uniforms, just like the contestants in Squid Game. No names, just numbers. And here's where it gets even more sinister. The guards, armed with baseball bats, made sure everyone stayed in line. Any attempt to speak, ask questions, or even cry was met with brutality. The place was a bizarre mix of a factory and a place of rehabilitation. But what they were really doing was something much darker. And the worst part, this place had a church, a welfare center, and a community care setup. But that church, it was the worst place of all. The reality of this story is far worse than fiction, and it's this reality that inspired Squid Game. The show's creator took real-world horrors and spun them into a series that reflects the deepest, darkest aspects of human nature. So, is Squid Game based on true events? It's not just a fictional tale. It's a reflection of a terrifying reality, one that was hidden for decades, one that's still barely acknowledged today. The connection between Squid Game and this horrifying event doesn't end there. The very system the kids were trapped in, forced to participate in deadly games, isolated from the outside world, and treated like mere numbers, mirrors the cruel, heartless system that existed in this hidden prison. The people who ran the facility controlled every aspect of life for these children, just like the masked guards and organizers in Squid Game. In the show, the contestants are chosen from the most desperate, the ones who have nothing left to lose. In reality, the children taken to this place were often from impoverished backgrounds, those with little to no family, with no one to miss them. It's eerie how these two worlds seem to align. The contrast between the bright, colorful Squid Game set and the bleak, oppressive reality these kids faced couldn't be more striking. Yet, the parallels are undeniable. Let's talk about the psychological psychological manipulation too. In Squid Game, contestants are forced to betray each other in order to survive. The show plays with the idea of desperation and the human need to survive at any cost. In the real-world parallel, the children were also manipulated into a system that stripped away their humanity. They were taught to survive by any means necessary, whether that meant enduring extreme violence, forgoing basic needs, or even betraying their peers to make it through the brutal conditions. And then there's the twist. The winners of the games, those who survive, are promised a chance to escape their tortured lives and live in luxury. But just like in real life, the rewards come at a cost. After surviving these terrible ordeals, the winners are left in a world that doesn't know how to handle their trauma. Their lives are permanently changed, scarred, and ruined. In Squid Game, the final twist is that the people behind the games are just as desperate as the players. The show ends with a stunning revelation. Those in charge, the organizers, are not some remote figures of evil. They are rich, powerful people who have been living off the misery of others. It's a metaphor for the real-world systems of inequality and exploitation. It might not be a literal reality, but it reflects the way the rich and powerful have historically manipulated and profited off the pain of the less fortunate. That brings us to the heart of it all. Squid Game isn't just about violence and survival. It's a commentary on society, a reflection of the systems that govern our lives. It's about how those who are powerless are often treated like pawns in a deadly game, whether it's through economic exploitation, violence, or systemic oppression. The show's creator may have denied any direct connection to the real-life events I've just shared, but the lines between fiction and reality are blurred in ways that can't be ignored. Now, let's address the question that inevitably arises. Why do people keep watching these types of shows? Why do we find ourselves drawn to the suffering of others, even when we know it's fictional? One explanation could be the catharsis that comes from watching people face adversity. In a way, we connect with their struggle, whether it's through the characters' desperation or the way they fight for survival. But there's also the discomforting fact that Squid Game and similar shows are consumed as entertainment, despite their heavy and often tragic themes. The moral ambiguity of the show encourages viewers to ask themselves difficult questions. What would I do in that situation? Would I betray others to survive? What is the true cost of my survival, and what does it say about the world I live in? These questions echo the same moral dilemmas that individuals trapped in real-world systems face. But the chilling reality remains. Squid Game is not just a fictional story. It's a lens through which we can examine the way we treat the most vulnerable among us. We may not be living in a literal Squid Game scenario, but the principles that govern such a world, inequality, desperation, and manipulation, are far from foreign. They are alive and well in the world around us. As we reach the end of this deep dive into Squid Game, let's remember one thing. This isn't just a story of survival. It's a story of society's darkest tendencies, the human cost of inequality, and the choices we make every day that shape the world around us. And while we may never face a literal Squid Game, we face the consequences of our actions and inactions every single day. The question is, will we continue to watch the game, or will we work to end it?